All right, so here's some definitions of eros and philia. And really, as you're thinking about this, think about how the Greeks had all these different terms for love. Think about when you witness desires in media or in your own life. What is eros? What is philia? What is agape? I'll talk about in a second. So philia is from the Greek, and it means amity, affection, friendship, fondness, liking. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So this is, I wouldn't say platonic love, but it's the love of brothers or those considered brothers. The love of, it's almost an altruistic, or it's not altruistic. It's a generally kind disposition towards someone. It's the feeling of active friendship. Eros, on the other hand, the OED defines Eros as love or the god of love or representation of the god of love. Now, Eros is an unpleasant and maddening desire. You are sick with longing and desire. Think about the time when that first person first broke your heart for no reason. You just got totally dumped and you're just like overwhelmed with rejection and desire and misery and whatnot. You're getting close to Eros there. So it's maddening desire that makes you sick. Now, later Christian writings, and I grew up hearing this all the time, would contrast agape and eros with eros being a physical or earthly type of love versus agape being a spiritual or heavenly love. Agape is also more like a sense of fraternity, so this is a general good feeling toward all men would be sort of this agape. Philia, general active friendship towards specific people. Agape, general friendship for all of humanity and mankind. Now, in the Hellenistic world, the word agape is used to stand for a communal meal, and later the spirit of communion, communing with people. And then agape is later said to be associated with the Eucharist, with the celebration of Mass and taking communion. All right, so if you really want to get a good sense of this, you'll open up your books or your PDFs or whatever to page 28, and you'll find this really great chart. And, you see spells for inducing philia and spells for inducing eros. So then on the left, you see Greek terms, general descriptions, desired action, desired effect, social context, typical users, typical victims, mythic exempla. So I recommend you look this over. I'm not going to talk it through with you. If we were actually in class, we'd probably talk through and sort of think through examples of all of these. But this, for really getting the difference between these rituals and their effects, just look at this chart. This chart on page 28 is really, really key. Okay. Now on page 29, and I'm going to read to you, though some of you don't like being read to, I don't really care. This is really sort of the key point in the beginning part. And I'm just going to read from page 29. Here, I must pause to make the linguistic distinction between eros magic, spells that induce passion, and philia magic, spells that induce affection. As clear as possible, since modern notions, so he's trying to make it as clear as possible, because modern notions of the meanings of erotic and friendship may cause problems here. We think of things differently. In archaic and classical Greek discourse, there is a clear difference between the invasive and dangerous onset of eros and the more benign feelings of philia, a term that generally describes a reciprocal relationship based on mutual affection. Thus, from the earliest periods, Greeks either describe the onset of eros as an invasive demonic attack or use a ballistic model in which Aphrodite, goddess of love, is said to throw and hit someone with eros or pathos. What does pathos mean? I can't remember right now. Sorry, I don't know Greek. I'm trying my best. On the other hand, Greeks never personify or demonize philia or agape, nor do they ever picture a deity hurling philia or agape at mortals in a hostile way. Deities afflict you with eros. Deities do not afflict you with philia or agape. This distinction should not, however, be overdrawn in a way that denies a sexual component to philia magic. Indeed, I am careful to avoid the polar opposition of erotic magic and non-erotic magic. That's very interesting. So what are we doing with that? Because in Greek, verbs and nouns related to philia and agape describe a wide array of marital, familial, and other relationships, some of which do involve, more so in Mediterranean cultures than in Northern European ones, intimate personal contact, such as kissing on the lips, embracing, caressing, and in the case of marriage or homosexual friendship, sexual intercourse as well. The real emphasis then for understanding these categories lies on the term eros, which for the Greeks was clearly and narrowly defined as a dangerous, unwelcome, and irresistible lust that aims squarely and explicitly at sexual intercourse. So, what kind of different loves do we see in our own culture? What do you make of a hookup culture? What do you make up of romantic love? I mean, how do we think of love? Do we think of all love as erotic love? Do we think about love between people? Do we think, I mean, there's so many aspects and dimensions of love, and the Greeks have a lot more words for its use. But I would argue we have just as many words as they do, and especially in this contemporary time in which we're really challenging notions of gender, sex, sexuality, that we're getting almost, it's not that we're getting back to where the Greeks were, because it's not about going back anywhere, but we're beginning to become a lot more like the Greeks in our understanding of love, and especially post-Victorian times when we were so heteronormative and the conception of love couldn't even be said between friends. Love was only an erotic male-female love accompanied by intercourse and erotics. So how are we thinking about love differently, and what does this tell us? And also, all in all, I mean, eros is destructive. It's illness, it's domination by others. It's not good for you. Philia is beneficial. So can we think of negative types of love? Beneficial love? What do we do with these terrible incels these days? Anyway, so what are our judgments and our takeaways? Can you imagine using these techniques? Just imagine. Can you imagine doing it? How would you use them? Would they make sense for us to use them in the contemporary world? To afflict someone with eros or to generate philia? Now, many of these effects, many of these technologies are pragmatic. They manipulate emotion and desire. These are analogs to a wide range of such rituals around the world. So love magic is not a universal thing or a universal set of techniques, but types of love magic, some looking similar, are widespread. It's analogous, not homologous. Greek magic is really critiqued and is anxiety inducing amongst the Greeks because it suppresses the will of another. So the will of a person was the highest aim in Greek culture, personal autonomy. Sanskrit has a term called swatantra or swatantriya, which means free to exist in your own manner. So if this magic takes away personal autonomy, which was anathema in Greek culture, does this make the magic subjective, subversive, antisocial, sadistic? How do we consider the individual and the will now, especially in the United States? And how would we think about magic and how we judge magic that does the type of stuff we're seeing here? All right, I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye now.